On the surface, the Kayla family had it all. Karen, a devoted mother, her daughters Emily and Lauren, young Sean, and their beloved grandmother, Dorothy White. But on Thanksgiving night in 2009, their world collapsed when someone they trusted most turned against them. Karen, Emily, Lauren, and Dorothy were murdered in cold blood, while Sean was the only one spared. Was it the act of a mind broken by madness, or a deliberate plan to destroy the family forever? In 1995, Kansas passed a strict law that changed how courts handled criminal cases. It stated that anyone who committed a premeditated crime could no longer claim they were not responsible because of a mental disorder that made them unable to tell right from wrong. The law came about because, at the time, almost every criminal on trial tried to escape punishment by saying they weren't in control of their actions or didn't understand the consequences due to mental illness. Years later, the head of the once happy Kayla family tried to use this same defense to avoid taking responsibility for his crimes. But psychologists ruled that he was sane. They explained that his actions were driven not by illness, but by jealousy, anger, and a thirst for revenge against his ex-wife who left him, and his daughters who stood by her side. Sadly, crimes fueled by jealousy and revenge are not rare. Worldwide statistics show that these motives account for 1 in 8 crimes. When suspicion, insecurity, and the need to control a partner spiral out of control, a person can turn into a predator, one who does not hesitate to harm even their own children. James Craig Kayla was born in 1963 in Weatherford, Texas. His future wife, Karen Kayla, originally Karen White, was born in the same town in 1965. The two first met in the early 1980s while attending a university in Texas. Craig was finishing his degree in engineering, while Karen was just starting out in the humanities department. They quickly connected, and before long, their friendship turned into a romance. To everyone around them, Craig and Karen seemed like the perfect young couple. Craig stood out as a top engineering student, admired for his determination and natural talent. By the late 1980s, the two were ready to begin their life together. They had a modest wedding, attended only by close family and a few friends. Their first daughter, Emily, was born in 1991, and their second, Lauren, was born in 1993. The young family lived in a cozy home in Weatherford and were considered fairly well off compared to many others in their community. In 1999, life seemed to improve even further. Craig received a well-paying position with a large utility company in Weatherford. That same year, Karen gave birth to their third child, a son named Sean. Craig adored his boy and often doted on him. With his promotion and higher income, Craig bought a spacious home in one of Weatherford's most prestigious neighborhoods and purchased a reliable family car. Karen stayed home to raise the children, while Craig worked as the main provider. From the outside, the Kaylas looked like the perfect family. Emily and Lauren were gifted in both academics and the arts. They took part in music and vocal competitions, and both excelled in school. Emily went on to study at a prestigious pharmacy college, while Lauren dreamed of attending a conservatory to pursue her passion for music. Their younger brother, Sean, was a bright and curious boy with a big imagination. Outgoing and kind, he loved exploring and had a special interest in pneumatics. He often told his parents he wanted to be an archaeologist one day. Sean shared a close bond with both his parents and his sisters. At home, Craig worked hard to provide for his family, while Karen created a warm and loving household. She baked, decorated, and always made sure her children felt cared for. The family was also active in the local community, working to improve their neighborhood. To outsiders, it seemed like the Kaylas had it all: a strong marriage, 3 talented children, and a secure future. But behind the image of perfection, things were not as they seemed. By 2007, Karen confided in her younger sister, Linda, that she was close to having a nervous breakdown. For years, she said, Craig had been controlling every part of her life, and instead of easing with time, his control kept tightening. Karen told Linda that Craig demanded to know every single detail of household spending, not just large purchases, but also everyday expenses. She was expected to save every receipt, share every bank transaction, and give Craig a daily report of her activities. The entire Kayla household ran on a rigid schedule set by Craig. When he came home from work, his wife and children had to be there waiting for him. Meals, bedtimes, and even the couple's intimacy was scheduled to the hour. Karen confessed that she felt like a prisoner in her own home. She no longer had free time for herself, only endless duties and responsibilities. She tried to meet Craig's expectations, hoping he would relax and things might return to how they once were. But instead, Craig seemed to enjoy his dominance and showed no signs of changing. Linda was shocked by her sister's story. Like many others, she had always thought of Craig as the perfect husband and father, but now she realized he was more of a domestic tyrant. Despite her unhappiness, Karen didn't want to break up the family. She also worried about her financial dependence on Craig. To find some stability, she decided she needed her own source of income. Though she was now a mother of 3, Karen had always taken excellent care of herself. She followed healthy diets, stayed active, and went jogging every morning. Quietly, without telling Craig, she joined a local fitness club where she worked out for hours each day while he was at the office. For Karen, it became an escape, a place to relieve stress, clear her mind, and reclaim a small part of her life. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed. Before long, the fitness club staff approached her and offered her the chance to become an instructor. They gave her a probationary period with the possibility of a formal contract afterward. For Karen, this was a dream come true. She could continue doing something she loved, all while earning a decent income of her own. Eventually, Craig discovered his wife's secret trips to the gym. Karen braced herself for an explosive argument and expected him to forbid her from going again. But surprisingly, Craig's reaction was the opposite. He remained calm, even seeming pleased that his wife had found an outlet and a way to make money. However, Craig set conditions. Karen had to continue being home when he arrived from work. Meals had to be prepared on time, and their planned intimate life could not be disrupted. To Karen, these rules felt manageable. In return, she had the freedom to pursue her passion and, for the first time, the ability to spend her earnings without reporting every penny. For Karen, this was a small but powerful step toward independence. Though Craig's need for control still loomed in the background. At the fitness club, Karen met a new instructor named Sunny Rice. The two women quickly connected and became close friends. For Karen, who had spent so many years as a stay-at-home mother with limited opportunities to socialize, Sunny became more than just a colleague. She became a confidant. They spent hours together, both at work and outside of it, going for walks, sharing coffee, and having heartfelt conversations. Over time, their friendship deepened into something more personal and intimate. Karen and Sunny started a secret relationship, keeping it hidden from everyone around them. But eventually, Karen felt she could no longer live a double life. After months of hesitation, she finally decided to tell her husband, Craig, the truth. She struggled to find the right words, fearing what his reaction might be. To her surprise, Craig did not explode in anger. He appeared calm, even indifferent, when Karen confessed. However, the next day, his true feelings surfaced in a very unexpected way. Craig told Karen that he would allow her relationship with Sunny, but only if he could also be part of it. Karen was stunned by his proposal. She hadn't anticipated such a reaction and was unsure how to respond. Craig, however, didn't wait for her answer. He immediately began pursuing Sunny himself, sending her flowers, small gifts, and trying to charm her. For Craig, this was not just about passion, it was about control. He saw the situation as an opportunity to expand his dominance, both in his marriage and beyond. At first, Karen and Sonny reluctantly went along with his advances, but it didn't take long for them to realize that Craig's involvement was toxic. Their relationship with him felt like a power struggle rather than love. Eventually, they made it clear that Craig was not welcome. Craig, feeling humiliated and rejected, demanded that Karen end her relationship with Sonny immediately. But Karen refused. For the first time in years, she felt truly free and in love. After almost 20 years of marriage, she was ready to risk everything to be with Sonny, even if it meant leaving Craig behind. After months of constant scandals, bitter confrontations, and emotional turmoil, Craig came up with what he believed was the only solution to save his family: a fresh start in another state. In secret, he began applying for jobs and sending out resumes. Before long, he secured a prestigious position as the water director for a large company in Columbia, Missouri, a city near the Kansas border. Craig was convinced that relocating the family would put an end to Karen's affair with Sonny. In his mind, physical distance would sever their bond, and life would return to the orderly, controlled version of marriage he had always demanded. In the summer of 2008, the Kaler family packed up their lives and made the difficult move. For the children, it was a painful adjustment. They had to leave behind their schools, friends, and everything familiar. The transition to a new city was far from easy. Financially, however, the family thrived. Craig's new role came with a salary nearly double what he had earned in Weatherford, and the prestige of his position boosted his standing in the community. But the added responsibilities kept him at work longer, leaving him blind to what was really happening at home. Craig had been certain the move would erase Sonny from Karen's life, but he was wrong. Despite the distance, Karen and Sonny continued their relationship in secret. They talked on the phone constantly, exchanged text messages, and even arranged clandestine meetings. Often, they would each drive halfway, spend a few hours together at a roadside hotel, and then return home as if nothing had happened. By this point, Karen's mind was made up. She no longer loved Craig. She saw their marriage as broken beyond repair, and divorce was only a matter of time. Their affair carried on in this manner until December 2008. That New Year's Eve, the Kaler family returned to Weatherford to celebrate with relatives and old friends. Sonny was also at the gathering. At first, Karen and Sonny kept things discreet, limiting themselves to polite greetings. But as the night went on, and as alcohol began to flow, their restraint crumbled. The two women became inseparable, openly holding hands, sharing lingering glances, and, at one point, even kissing in front of the guests. The public display was impossible to ignore. Craig was not just hurt, he was enraged. To him, Karen had disgraced him, humiliating him in front of former classmates, friends, and colleagues. Craig erupted, verbally attacking both Karen and Sonny in front of everyone. He then forcefully dragged his wife out of the party. On the drive home, his fury boiled over. He violently grabbed Karen by the shoulders and shook her with such force that her dress tore. In his blind rage, he struck her across the face, causing her to stumble, fall, and hit her head. When the family returned home after that disastrous New Year's Eve, the tension didn't fade. Within just a few days, Karen made her decision clear. She told Craig that she was leaving him. She filed for divorce and demanded full custody of the children. At first, Craig desperately tried to save the marriage. He apologized, begged her to think about the children, and pleaded for another chance. But Karen stood firm. She told him openly that she was leaving for Sonny and admitted that she had never been truly happy with him. Craig, unwilling to accept the divorce, began calling their mutual friends and relatives, urging them to talk to Karen and convince her not to go through with it. But nothing worked. Her mind was made up. By early spring of 2009, While the divorce was still pending and the couple was living under the same roof, another heated argument spiraled out of control. For the first time since that New Year's Eve, Craig once again turned violent. Karen reported the assault to the police, and Craig was arrested. At the station, he tried to downplay the incident, claiming his wife was hysterical and that he had only held her tightly to calm her, which supposedly explained the bruises on her arms. After that, Karen had enough. Without waiting for the divorce to be finalized, she packed up and left the family home, taking the children with her. For Craig, it was a devastating blow. But what crushed him even more was discovering that his daughters, Emily and Lauren, sided with their mother. They told him that, for the first time in years, they saw Karen genuinely happy. Craig saw their support for their mother as an act of betrayal. Out of spite, he cut off communication with both Emily and Lauren, only staying in contact with his son, Sean, whom he took with him on weekends while coldly ignoring his daughters. Even though Karen had left, Craig refused to let go. He remained obsessed with the idea that she might come back to him. Consumed by jealousy and control, he began stalking her. He parked outside her house, followed her around town in a rented car, and even tried to plant a hidden camera inside her home when no one was there. His obsession consumed so much time that it started affecting his career. First, he took vacation days. Then, he began calling in sick. Eventually, he simply stopped showing up altogether. His employer had no choice but to terminate him. Jobless and without income, Craig moved back into his parents' house. But instead of using the time to rebuild his life, he used it to intensify his surveillance of Karen. He followed her constantly, harassed her endlessly, and left her living in fear. Eventually, Karen was forced to take legal action, bringing Craig to court in an attempt to stop him from approaching her. In November 2009, just before Thanksgiving, Karen decided to take her children to visit her 89-year-old grandmother, Dorothy White, in the quiet town of Burlingame, Kansas. It was meant to be a simple holiday gathering, a chance to spend time with family, share meals, and escape the chaos of their broken home life. But instead, it became the setting of an unimaginable tragedy. On the evening of November 29th, the Burlingame Police Department received a frantic call about a suspicious van parked near Dorothy's home and the sound of gunfire. Alarmed neighbors had seen a small truck pull up outside the elderly woman's house. A man stepped out, entered the home, and shortly after, they heard screams and gunshots echoing through the still night. Terrified and certain the intruder was armed, the neighbors did not dare intervene. When police arrived, the front yard was eerily quiet, until a young boy burst out, crying desperately for help. It was 10-year-old Sean Kaler. He was shaken, incoherent, unable to fully explain what had just unfolded inside. But it was clear from his terror that the scene awaiting the officers was horrific. The first thing officers saw as they entered was Dorothy White. The 89-year-old homeowner lay by the front door in a pool of her own blood. Incredibly, she was still alive, despite being struck by 2 bullets. But just a few steps deeper into the house, the horror grew. In the kitchen lay the lifeless body of 44-year-old Karen. She had been shot in the chest, then executed at close range with a shot to the head. Her ex-husband had given her no chance to survive. Nearby, the body of her eldest daughter, 18-year-old Emily, was discovered wedged between a couch and the wall. It appeared she had tried to hide, desperately seeking cover. But her father had hunted her down and ended her life with 2 point-blank shots. Upstairs, police made another heart-wrenching discovery. 15-year-old Lauren lay bleeding in her bedroom. She was gravely wounded but still clinging to life. Barely conscious, she whispered faintly, begging to be saved, repeating through labored breaths that her father had done this. Both Dorothy and Lauren were rushed to the hospital and placed in intensive care. Doctors fought tirelessly to save them, but their injuries were too severe. Lauren succumbed to massive blood loss and internal damage on December 1st. Dorothy passed away only hours later. The only surviving witness to the massacre was young Sean, traumatized and in shock. He required immediate psychological care before investigators could question him. Eventually, he recounted the horror of that night. He told them his mother had been in the kitchen preparing dinner. He had gone to her, excitedly asking about his favorite pies. That was when the back door suddenly swung open, and his father stormed in, shotgun in hand. Without a word, Craig pointed the weapon at Karen and pulled the trigger. She collapsed, but he advanced and fired again at close range. Sean froze, paralyzed by terror. Then his father turned toward him. He didn't raise the gun. He just stared silently, his gaze cold and unblinking. In that moment, Sean realized he had to run. He bolted through the open back door and circled toward the front of the house, hoping to reach his grandmother and sisters, maybe even call for help. But as he neared the entrance, more gunshots rang out behind him. Too afraid to go back inside, Sean dashed into a small outbuilding on the property and hid, trembling in the dark. From there, he could still hear the repeated blasts of the shotgun echoing from inside the house. Each one felt like a final, crushing blow to his family. He waited, terrified, expecting at any moment for his father to come after him. The manhunt for Craig Kahler began immediately. He was placed on the wanted list with warnings to the public that he was armed and extremely dangerous. Before long, police began receiving reports of a speeding truck barreling down the highways of Kansas. These sightings helped officers quickly determine the direction the gunman was traveling. At some point during the night, Craig abandoned his truck in a wooded area and set out on foot down a deserted country road. It did not take long for law enforcement to close in. By the next morning, they caught up with him and apprehended him without resistance. Inside the truck, officers found the shotgun and ammunition left on the back seat, along with prescription medication for depression and anxiety disorders lying next to the driver's seat. When Craig was arrested, he appeared strangely calm, confused, frightened, and almost hollow. He admitted right away that he had been carrying a gun and a hunting knife, but claimed he never intended to use them against police. He quietly confessed that he had done something terrible, which he believed the officers already knew about. At the station, during the first hours of questioning, Craig poured his heart out. He admitted to everything, telling investigators about his ex-wife's affair, the humiliation he felt when they mocked him in front of friends during a New Year's Eve party, and how his desperate attempts to save his marriage cost him his job and what remained of his dignity. Breaking down in tears, he said he did not understand how he had reached the point of murder, only that he felt betrayed not just by Karen, but by his daughters as well. Craig's trial began in December 2010. At first, he had confessed fully, but under the advice of his lawyer, Thomas Heaney, he recanted his earlier admissions. His new defense strategy hinged on claiming insanity. This, his attorney argued, was the only possible way to avoid the death penalty for the murders of 4 family members. Heaney painted a picture of a man collapsing under unbearable emotional strain. He described how Craig's wife had left him, how his daughters sided with their mother, how he lost his job, and how, stripped of pride, he was forced to move back into his parents' home. Under such weight, Heaney argued, Craig's mental state had broken down, and he committed the crime in a state of temporary insanity, unaware of his own actions. But the timing of this defense could not have been worse. Prior to 1995, Kansas law had allowed defendants to plead insanity to reduce their culpability. That law, however, had been repealed. Now, in Kansas, a mental disorder could not be used as an excuse for failing to distinguish right from wrong. The prosecution dismantled the insanity defense. They showed that Craig's actions were not spontaneous or irrational, but coldly calculated. He purchased the weapons and ammunition ahead of time, drove to Dorothy White's home knowing his family was inside, and shot each victim twice at close range, ensuring they would not survive. The one exception was his son, Sean, whom he deliberately spared. That single choice, prosecutors argued, proved he knew exactly what he was doing. In August 2011, the jury delivered its verdict. Craig Kahler was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death. At the final hearing, Sean, then 12 years old, bravely testified. His words stunned the courtroom. Despite the horror he had endured, he said he did not want his father to be executed. Craig, after all, was the only close family he had left. Craig and his attorneys filed appeal after appeal, but each was denied. The sentence stood firm. Today, Craig Kahler remains on death row, continuing to fight in hopes of having his case reviewed and his sentence overturned. As for Sean, his life took a different path. After losing his mother and sisters, he was placed under the care of his maternal grandmother. Slowly, he rebuilt his life. He grew up, finished school, and pursued an education. Now an adult, he has chosen to remain in his home state, carrying with him the scars of an unthinkable past and the strength to continue forward. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to the channel, and also, don't forget to click the bell. There are many shocking stories ahead.